Welcome to the Boeville Newtown's vlog, or episode number 12 for 2022. It happens to be March 27th of 2022, and, well, that's interesting. Sorry, I just happened to notice, I think I'll do a, oh, okay, never mind. I thought I had a splinter in my finger. I actually worked on something that came out rather uniquely, let's put it that way. It happens to be underneath the tripod right now. I can actually, and I'm not sure how well this is going to work, but we'll give it a shot. I can wheel the tripod. Now, it's a little wonky, but when I get done with the intro here, I'll take you down and I'll show you what it looks like. But there was one other thing that did bother me, and that was the fact that after I put the throttle holders on the front of the layout, I think I talked about this in the very beginning when I put in the block switches, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a minute. But I actually originally had them, well, they're still on pegboard, but I had them mounted from behind, so that the switches themselves, the toggles, were underneath the layout. Great concept. A little bit tough when you're doing switching operations to know which side it's on. So what I've done is I've actually unscrewed them from behind the 2x4 and actually screwed them to the front of the 2x4, so now they're out in the open. Because I realized when I put the throttles out here, the throttle boxes out here, and of course I still have the car cards out here too for the Wakert Industrial Railroad and for American Copper or Atlantic Copper and Brass and the RBC distribution, that there's still plenty of room, walkway between the layout with those things jutting out and everything else that's down here. So it's not really that big of a problem. So I went ahead and brought them out so that way they could be viewed instead of underneath. That was one of the things that I've been futzing around with besides the dolly underneath the tripod. One of the other things is that one of my subscribers brought up something that to a point has bothered me as well, but it wasn't real high on the priority list. And although he's right, it aesthetically looks a lot better when you fix it than what it does to leave it the way I had it. What am I talking about? When I redid the trackage in Boeville Yard, there were a couple spots that were missing ties because I'd cut them back to be able to get the rail joiners and everything else. One of the things that I've tried to do with this layout that I hadn't done in the past is not cut so many ties off to allow enough room for the rail joiner to actually slip on, and then you can put the tie back up underneath. Like I said, to me, because I'm still, what's the best way to put this? I guess it's one of those things, I'm still in a little bit of a phase where I'm not ready to really start diving into, I want to start getting some scenery done. All right, we'll go with it this way. I do want to get scenery done. However, ballasting the track to me right now is not on that list of scenery stuff. Why? Because the more and more that I run this railroad, I find little idiosyncrasies. If I would have, and I've tested the living heck out of this thing by now, and you all know, if you've watched the channel for any length of time, you know that I've beat the living heck out of the track on this thing. And I've found issues along the way. And in fact, there's a couple other things that are eating at me that we're going to probably talk about here in a little bit too. So with that being said, not worried about ballasting. If I had, and I found all these neat little issues, well, first off, if I was getting ready to ballast, I would have gone ahead and put the ties back up underneath the rail joints, and that would have been done. But like I said, because I'm not at that point, because I'm not comfortable 100% with the track work yet. The track work is good, don't get me wrong. I believe I've got 98%, 99% of the issues. And of course, any model railroader will tell you, no matter how many times you run a train across the line, the one time it's going to cause you a problem is when you're videoing. If you caught the last video, you saw a lot of that down at the yard. I don't know what was going on. I've never had an issue with the SD24 going in and out of the yard. The other day, it didn't want to do that. The yard switcher was having issues, and then the GP35, well, that was my fault. I forgot to switch one of the switches on the throat, and it didn't like it, and it came off the track. So that last one was on me. The first two, though, they've kind of got me scratching my head. But again, it's probably because the camera was on. Like I said, I can beat the living heck out of this thing with the camera off and not have a freaking problem. As soon as I turn the camera on, everything decides to fall apart. So, I did go back and I did fix a couple of the rail joints, or put ties up underneath of one or two of the rail joints. I have saved all of the ties that I have cut off of the railroad underneath the rail joints so I can go back and put them back in. Like I said, it was not a high priority to put those underneath because I wasn't 100% certain with the track plan. I wasn't 100% certain with the track work itself. Although, again, go back to that tank train where I lost a screw up underneath of the passenger terminal, and that tank train, that one tank car, continued to run all the way up into the yard. And that's when I found out that I had lost a screw, that the truck was loose. So I guess you could say that that's great track work. If you can run a car with no screw in the truck all the way across the layout, I think it was like 40 some feet. Okay, maybe my track work isn't as bad as I think it is. Anyway, let me go ahead and stop here for a minute, and I'll show you a couple of things that have been done. So give me a minute, and we'll be back. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the block number 3 control, and you see it says north, south. We've got the two toggle switches here. These are DPDT center offs. I'm going to change the label down here. Right now it says Power Pack B, Power Pack A, Power Pack B, Power Pack A. This is actually going to change to normal and opposed. What do I mean by that? Well, because of the fact that with the walk-around throttles, there's no longer, there is an A and a B, but you could have either A or B on the north, and you could have either A or B on the south. Only the thing of it is A can only be on the north when B is on the south, vice versa. Anyway, so I'm going to have these, I'm going to reset these to say normal, and then opposed, which means it's the opposite controller, instead of Power Pack A, Power Pack B. But this one here happens to be for block 3, which is the one that happens to be outside of the Weikert Industrial area here. That one actually, block 3, and I'm going to go back and talk about this, but block 3 ends here and goes all the way, sorry for the quick move, but block 3 ends down here, and then block 2 goes down just outside of Boeville Yard, and then it goes to block 1, which covers the 2 hidden yards all the way back out to block 3. So block 1 has got block 2 on one side and block 3 on the other. So that's how that works. So like I said, I've redone that for both block 2 and block 3. Block 1 was already set up that way because there was no way to get a screwdriver up underneath the layout. So anyway, that's that. We're going to stop here for a minute and I'll show you the other thing that I was working on. Okay, so here we are down at Boeville Yard. There was a huge missing set of, in fact, that one there is a little loose. I got to put a spike in that, but there's actually two ties here. I still have to put another tie here. I probably have to put a partial tie here, but I have started to backfill some of these spaces. I know I've got another one. I'm not sure if it shows up on camera or not, but it's over here that I have to put another tie into. Like I said, I get it. I understand. But like I said, it was just a low priority on the list. I've also got to go back and figure out exactly what I did with some of the ties because they're not all where I thought they were. And of course, I've got the same issue when you go up to the interurban. That's got the same problem. There's a bunch of missing ties up there. So eventually, I will get them all taken care of. Hopefully, I'm doing this without shaking it too bad. I actually do believe I've got the anti-shake on, but that is the dolly that I built. It's got little wheels up underneath, and I can actually, like I said, I can just drag it right across the floor. Yeah, I know, I've got wire ties holding the legs in place. I'm going to cut those. But it functions, and it's a lot easier than picking the thing up and walking across the floor with it, and so on and so forth. So, okay, you know, like I said, scrap wood, a couple pieces. It took me about maybe a half hour. So now I've got a dolly for the tripod. Okay. Next point of contention. Well, happens to be back here in the hidden yards. One of the things that I noticed when I was doing finishing up and I've still got 2 trains I've got to run. Actually, I think I've got 4 I've got to run. I've got to replace this switch, or at least fix it, and I've got to fix this one. They're both electrically dead. I have no idea. I know what's wrong. I just have to get in there and mess with it. I got to put jumpers in there. We've talked about that in the past. I've done repairs on some of the other switches, or the turnouts. So that's going to be something I want to work on. The other thing was, as I was doing the op sessions, I realized another little idiosyncrasy back here. And that's the fact that each one of these has a dead section. Just like the Boeville yard has at the diesel servicing facility. That's so that you can put multiple locomotives up here, because I'm still DC. Put multiple locomotives up here, and then I have them all take off when you turn on the throttle. Great idea. Wonderful idea. The problem is in the yard here, if I've got multiple trains staged, and I want to, let's say I'm actually in an operating session, I've got more than one person over here, or I've got multiple people working. Well, the guy that's running the northbound train has to talk to one of the 2 yard masters, and they actually have to slide the locomotive past the dead spot in order to be able to get up the line. That's not ideal. So what's the solution? Well, the solution's fairly simple, to a point. And that's going ahead and actually putting in my SPSTs, or SPDTs, whatever you want to call them, and actually mount them, just like I did with the DPDTs for the blocks, actually mount them to the outside edge here, so that way when the operator wants to take a train out, as long as he knows which one it's supposed to be, he turns on the dead track, the locomotive comes out. Once he's past the crossing over here, then he can go ahead and shut it back down, and that way the yard master that's working over here can put the next train onto that track. It's extra level of complexity that I had planned for, but I was hoping I wouldn't have to worry about it for a while, but it's now at the point where I have to do something about it. The other thing that I have to do back here is the fact that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 switches, or turnouts, that do not have switch machines. And as you know, most of the stuff that's on this railroad right now, with the exception of what's on the main lines, is manual. So I have to come up with a couple switch machines back here, and I think I've got them. I should have them. So I can actually make these to where they're at least manual throw for the time being. I don't think I'm actually going to electrify any of these back here. I'll probably leave them all manual throw, just because that it's in the yard. I mean, somebody's going to be standing here and they can just flip the thing when it needs to be flipped. So anyway, that's, I think what I'm going to work on next is getting these two switches repaired if I can. If I can't, then I'll replace them. I think I've still got a couple left. So I'm going to work on that. And then probably, well, I'm going to finish out after I do that, I'm going to finish out the ops session. And then we'll go from there. So we'll be back. Okay, as before, I've got an issue between, and I know it's upside down and it's sitting in the vise here, but it's basically between the outside rail and the diverging rail on the outside, what would be the outside. There's no connectivity. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same repairs that I've done in the past. And all that entails is cutting out the underlying tie holder here. There we go. There's one side of it. And I know we talked about this when I was doing the kits and stuff. You always have, or should have, a set of cutters to do plastic and a set of cutters to do metal. Obviously this is plastic, so we're not going to go ahead and use those to cut metal, and we're only cutting the back ties out of the way. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get my metal cutters. And I'm going to cut some wire, and then I'm going to go ahead and solder this in place. So we'll be back. Okay, so you see that right there. That's what I just did. So now I just tested it, and I've got electrical activity. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fix the other switch. Alright, well, the second switch I had is not, it's repairable, but it's going to be too much of a pain in the butt. I'm not going to bother with it. So I'm just going to replace it. I've got another right-hander, so I'm going to go out and do that. So that's where we're headed. We're headed back out to the layout to reinstall the switches. Okay, folks. So, well, track is fixed. Now the only thing I've got to do is I got to come back and, like I said before, I'm going to put the dead track switches in at some point. I'm not going to do that today. I've got to get ready for Sidetrack Sunday tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and de-rig this thing and get it set up for tonight. But I'm not done with this video yet, but I don't know when I'm going to get back to doing work on this. So we'll be back. We're back here at the bench. Why are we back here at the bench? I'm sorry, I'm trying to get situated back on this seat. Well, as I mentioned the other day, that when I decided to put in the throttles, the walk-around throttles, I had an issue with the hidden yards. And basically what that is the yard master is going to have to flip the switches, or I was going to have to put switches in, or they were going to be pushing the locomotives or the trains out of the yard. Which isn't ideal. I'd rather them, once they're on the track, they're powered. So, what I've done is I've come up with this neat little panel that will sit over at the hidden yard. So you have tracks 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this will mount on the obviously on the 2x4 that is on the back of the layout. and there'll be wires to that, and I've already gone ahead and taken care of one of these. As you can see, as long as I don't drop it, this right hand is really pissing me off. What I've got is I've got two sets of wire here. They're about 6 foot long. And this is another set of switches. So what's going to happen is, for each one of these switches, there's two wires. One wire will go to the track. The other wire will go to the block power. So that way, it's got direct power. It's not pulling power from a track. So what will happen is power will come in. You flip the switch on. It goes ahead and routes itself right through and right to the track. Easy enough. So I've got one done. I've got to build wiring for one more, and I'm actually waiting for my drill to recharge so I can actually go ahead and drill some holes. Well, the other problem was I realized that to be able to drill the holes into the Richmond yard to be able to get up to the dead tracks, the tracks that are isolated, I needed to pull out the hidden yard shelving unit. So I've got that all apart, which isn't that big of a deal because when I was at Home Depot the other day, I actually bought some drawer knobs, so I can actually, instead of you're not grabbing the drawer, you can actually grab a knob and open the drawer. So I'm going to get back to working on the rest of these the other set of switches, and we'll be back in a bit. Who knows where this camera is going to be sitting when we get back. And I love the fact that it's on wheels. It makes things so much easier. Hoping that this is showing up on camera, which it appears to be, but I'm going to try and zoom in here just a little bit. Alright, so I didn't get as far last night as I thought I would. I actually was up underneath the layout, and I'm actually going to show you kind of what I did, because I need to build the terminal strips for the other side. But what's going to happen here is next to the, as you can see, next to the throttle holder, there's our throttle holder. We have the DPDTs for the, this would be for Harrisburg yard. Why? Because this throttle is the one that heads south. So Richmond yard, which is away from us, and I'll show you that here in a second. But, so this is going to be what I'm going to call H1, H2, H3, H4. And what that is this is the longest track, this is the next one, this is the next one, this is the short one. Daggone it. The camera there, the ring light just changed intensity. Anyway, so that's how this is going to work. And there's another panel that looks just like this on what is going to be the northbound, which would be controlling Richmond, which we're right now looking at Richmond yard. It seems a little backwards, but it is just the way it is, because like I said, if you're the northbound operator or running the northbound train, your throttle is going to start here, and you're going to follow your train out of the yard and across this track here, which is this is the southbound run. So, in fact, the passenger train, this Baltimore, Ohio passenger train, which is coming into view, that is on the southbound run. So, like I said, underneath the layout, I've actually got this wired in, sort of, for Richmond. Last night, I went through and ran the wiring underneath the layout, and all the pigtails are sitting up here for each one of the tracks. In fact, I'm going to lay these over because I'm afraid if I don't, then they're going to want to sneak back into the underneath, and that's not good. That's not going to be a good thing if they do. We're just going to bend them over so that they don't sneak back underneath. So, and as you can see, I've also got my meter sitting out here because eventually, once I get everything wired, I want to verify that I've got things wired up right. The other thing that you'll notice is that the shelving unit or the drawer unit is out because I needed to get underneath the layout. I didn't bother taking it out, but all the storage drawers are over on the table. So, like I said, I didn't get as far as I wanted to with this, but I do want to show you how I did the wiring for how this whole thing works. So, no, other way. So, we'll be, I'm going to go ahead and stop here for a minute, and I'm going to go over to the table, and I'll show you how I did the wiring for underneath, or at least partially. So give me a minute, we'll be back. Okay, so actually up underneath the layout right now, and I'm going to bend these, there's two terminal strips on that on the Richmond yard, or underneath the Richmond yard. And what it is one of them is the jumper that goes from the outer rail of block 1. Why is that? Because the two hidden yards are controlled by block 1, which never changes, but regardless. So what's going to happen is there's going to be spade lug that's going to have the black wire, which will go over to the north, or the southbound outer rail. And actually I'm going to use this longer piece of black to do that, because I don't know exactly how much of this black wire I'm going to need underneath of there. The only thing I need is my glasses, so I can actually see what the heck it is that I'm doing here. It'd be helpful. So what we're going to do is we're going to strip back a piece of this black wire. That will be the one that goes to the terminal strip that has the outer rail. This wire, and I don't know how much of this is actually showing up, I'm sorry. Let's bring this up a little bit. So this wire here is going to be the jumper that's going to go from terminal to terminal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie these two together. And one of the things that I do is I like to bend them over a little bit. So I always cut more wire than I need, or strip back more wire than I need, just at a principle, because it's always easier sometimes if you have to cut it back than what it is to try and add to it. And it goes back to that measure twice, cut once type of thing. Alright, so there's the first spade. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to loop this, and I'm going to cut it again. Now some people would be like, well, the only thing you really have to do is just kind of strip the wire back enough and just put it inside the next spade. Well, true, that would be one way to do it. But, yeah. So we go ahead and we strip back the wire again, and then we take the piece that we just cut. This will make probably a little bit more sense here in a minute, because it's probably not making much sense at the moment. So now we've got our second one. We tie these two together. And the same thing, I'll just bend it over. And then we'll put another lug on. crimp that down. Alright, so I need to have 4 of these lugs by the time I'm done, so I still need to make 2 more cuts. So we'll make another loop. Strip that one back. Take our cut piece. And then we'll make one more loop. And since this is the last one that I need, I don't need to tie anything else into it. And we crimp that one down. Alright. So what happens is these go into this terminal strip. Like that. And then the one side of the DPDT will go into these. Like I said, that's the common. So it comes over, and then this will feed into the DPDT, and then this side is the other side of that switch. So basically what it is one side comes into here, this side feeds the wiring that actually feeds, will feed the switch. So there's going to be another set of 2 lugs on each one of these terminals here. One side feeds the switch, the other side feeds the track. So that's how that works. And of course, you know, you got your power that comes into here. It'll go over, go through the switch. The switch will feed the track, and that's how you get power to the track. That's basically it. Old school DC, wonderful stuff. So that's that. I'm going to go ahead and swing the camera up here a little bit. There we go. And that's that. Like I said, I didn't get as far as I wanted to, and I'm not going to be able to get underneath the layout tonight. It's a little too late for that. So I'm going to continue to work on this, and then once I'm done, I'll show you some of the testing that happens, and then we'll go from there. So you all know the deal. Wait for the high ball. Green tracks ahead. We'll catch you all next time. Be safe. God bless. We'll see you.